Hello, this is Rhonda Kitchens, and I'm the library at Big Bend Community College. Today, I'm going to talk about something about looking for scholarly articles. Sometimes they're called peer-reviewed. The reason they're called that is because they go through a vetted and edited process. A person, a writer, usually a researcher from a college or an association or a scientist will prepare a research idea that they will then test out and provide and try to get published. And once it's in that publishing arena, it goes through several areas of editing. Generally, it'll be read to see if it's acceptable for others to read. It will be considered for that publication, that journal, or their website. Then it's going to go to each one of the members, and each of the members of that editing committee will review it and send back to the author or authors what to do, how to change it, how to update it, how to make it better. And they'll kind of engage them to make sure that the work is appropriate, well represented, and ready for publication. Sometimes this can take a month. Sometimes this can take years in the case of some medical types of research. So when you are working in one of your classes and your professor or instructor specifically says, I want you to only use scholarly or peer-reviewed materials, I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm right now on bigbend.edu, but I'm going to go to the library. The library page right now has two places that you could look at this particular thing that I've built to describe a scholarly article. One is here underneath topics, and I also have it well represented up in the slider area. And we're going to go over the pieces. When you're searching for a scholarly article, you actually have to make sure that it is one. Most of our databases will have a little block and it'll say check for a scholarly article or peer-reviewed, but what it's really saying is it can find that journal. Now, it can't tell you that that article will be a scholarly article, so that's why it's really important that you know what it is. And as you move along in your academic journal, some academic articles are considered higher than others. In cases of something like with nursing or medicine, where there's a medicine evidence-based practice, there's actually a pyramid of evidence where a systematic review as far much more well trusted and used than, say, a case study. But here today, I'm just going to talk to you about just locating, seeing, understanding, knowing how to read and research for a scholarly article or a peer-reviewed article. When I say these things, they're interchangeable. I like it when they say peer-reviewed because it more or less describes the process under which a person has to go through to actually publish these pieces of work. It's difficult. Not everyone will get published in this academic arena. So I have a lot of respect for this process. And I also understand that when we look at these, we can look at these critically. They give us enough information that we can make critical decisions or kind of question what the conclusions are. A research article at its best is extremely transparent. You can do the math. You could reach out to the people who wrote it. You can question why they included one thing and why they excluded another. And this is a part of the academic process where people publish, we read, we research, and we build upon this piece. So I'm going to start now just with the anatomy. The first thing when you're looking for a scholarly article, you'll notice the title is generally very different than one you'll see, say, on Twitter, Instagram, or any other place. In some cases, you may not even be able to pronounce the words in it, at least at the beginning of your career. As you grow into your career, a lot of the words and the phrases and the idioms will become secondhand to you and you might not even notice them anymore. In this case, this is slightly easy to read. It is from a nursing journal, and it also shows us the people who wrote the journal. Now, it's showing us first name and last name, but down here it gives us more information. If you look, we see they work, at least some of them, the Kalamazoo Valley Community College. This person works in Minnesota, and I think another person is in Michigan. So all of these authors and investigators work together to produce this one particular piece. It tells us who they are. We see their academic credentials. We see who they're with. We note that some of their associations. We see their titles. We see where they are. If we wanted to pick up the phone and call them or find them on, find their email, it'd be quite easy to do so. There's a great deal of openness and transparency. I'm going to go towards the bottom of this. I'm not sure if there's one here. What I also look for sometimes is a statement of ethics. It may be like already in the journal that they had to sign the ethics, so it may not have to be on the individual article. But it is a professional level article will make it clear that the persons investigating this topic they're not going to profit from anything that may be sold from it. So you'll see those pieces quite frequently. The next thing you'll be looking for is an abstract. This is not named, it doesn't have a headline, but it is the abstract for this piece. These are kind of like almost 300-word descriptions of the article. And I want to put right here, researcher beware. While the article itself keeps moving through the peer review process, sometimes the abstract gets left behind. In fact, sometimes the abstract at some point of the editing process, it doesn't really reflect the actual article. So make sure anytime you cite something, you read the entire thing. Well, sometimes there's a little bit of a difference. And sometimes you wonder how these two things actually marry up at all. Until I actually published an article, I didn't really understand that process. And I could see how that could be tricky. And plus, as a person who's publishing, you're going to load up that abstract full of words and search terms so that people will find your article and cite you, because that is what you want to happen to your work. You want to go in and get pulled into the academic process and move forward. The next section is called the literature review. This is librarians love this particular section. You as a student, you're going to adore it. But again, researcher beware. If you're going to do a lot of time the literature review is easier to read than the article itself, but these are not the words of the authors. You'll see they have a citation where they belong to other people. What they're doing here is they're letting you know what they read to build these arguments. Hey Lucy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Did I lose you at a bad time or anything? Do I need to go back?
What are you guys briefly talking about?
Okay.
Catch up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Colton, and we are being recorded. I hope that's okay, just in case some people missed it. What we're talking about today is the anatomy of a scholarly article, and I was going to talk about what it looks like, because when you go into the databases and you push the button that says peer-reviewed or scholarly article, all that gets you is a journal, and you actually have to look at the article and kind of understand its pieces. So I went to, of course, the library. And on our library page, let me kind of flip through that, pull that together, just hang on. I went here and we have an actual link to scholarly articles, which will lead you here. And all it is an explanation. So are you kind of caught up, sort of?
Yes.
Yes, these are the articles, and usually when you use these, it'll be maybe later on in your academic career, but usually a professor start trying to pull you in earlier, and you'll see it in your rubric or your assignment must have 2 or 3 scholarly articles or something like that. This is what they're talking about. So I just want to make sure you know what it looks like and how to find it. So I explained the authors. The authors will be well identified. In fact, you can see, if you can see here on the screen, you know where they work, you know their credentials, you know a lot of things about them. If you want to write them, and please do, that's part of the option when you're working with this level of academic work. You can say, why did you make the decision to include or not include these people? And it can be quite interesting to you if you're working on your own piece or presentation. The other sections I have here to the left, and I also have them starred. But oftentimes the title itself is really hard to read. In fact, you would be embarrassed to read it in public, not thinking you can get all the syllables in. This one happens to be quite easy, but usually it's written in the terminology of the profession. And that's something that will come to you as you get further down your academic path. But I can assure you, the more you read them, even if they're difficult, the more you understand them and kind of get the language. I think of it as kind of a poetry myself. And there's all these different sections. On the abstract, make sure that you read the entire article and don't use the abstract, because sometimes through the editing process, they don't marry up that well anymore. And you might not know this, the experiment actually didn't go well. So there's sometimes a part at the end called limitations, where they tell you they should have used more money, more people, or something else that happened to them during the process. And that's not going to be in the abstract ever. So make sure you read the whole thing. The literature review is talking about the things that they read to begin this process, how they developed their research question. Sometimes when you first start reading them, you're going to have like such a huge confidence level in this section, because usually it is easy to read and they make their points with a great deal of clarity. However, if you'll see some of these in-text citations, these are not actually the author's word. So if you're using MLA or APA, you're going to use that as a secondary quote, like it's used from somebody else's work. And this will make sense to you when you start looking at some of the citations. So it's just a beware part of that. When we get down to here, where we don't see the in-text, we start seeing where the authors are creating their own intellectual property. They talk about the background. They kind of let you know where they're at, their purpose, and the significance of their research. Usually they pull this from their reading and that literature part in the front. They notice that there's a hole in here. Well, they have used X and Z, there's sort of Y, but nobody looked at M. So it might be their purpose to go in this direction. They'll talk about their significance and what they want to accomplish. And sometimes these are sort of bound together, but definitely you'll be looking for something called method. And this is like the really, really important part, because sometimes your professor will want you to find like a narrative or quantitative or qualitative article. And this method shows you how they set up their design, how they did it. A lot of times you'll see their survey questions. Many times you're going to see their math. You could actually check their math if you would like to work at that level, because sometimes people have found out that their math wasn't correct, yet somehow it made through the editors. The academic article is a great place to use your critical thinking, because it's something you would want to build on, so you want to make sure it fits together well. Now, limitations is sometimes like a warning. They're not in every one of the scholarly or peer-reviewed articles. It sort of lets you know, while we tried to have 100 people come in and do this study, 4 of them showed up. And this may not be mentioned in the abstract or any of the top portions of the article. And this is one of the main reasons I suggest when you're reading them, read them backwards. Read the conclusion first, and then go through and read the rest of it, and it sort of falls together for you. This also, the limitation, sort of sets you up as a researcher to build onto this piece and continue with this academic research in these areas. It lets you know, oh, I need to go get a grant to pay these people to sit here for 3 days, and that way I may have 100 people, something like that. This is where, again, you can deploy your critical thinking skills and your ingenuity in creating your own work to go forward. And the conclusion should give you a pretty good wrap up about how this resolved. This is a very brief one, and usually I'm thankful for the brief one. Sometimes they're a little confused because people will include, oh, this didn't go so well, the limitations with the conclusion, but this one's very clearly broken out. So it's a really nice piece. It happens to be from a nursing journal. And at the end, you'll have references or works cited. Now, these will usually be APA-like, so don't copy these for your own work unless, first of all, you read the entire thing. But oftentimes a journal will have like APA adjacent citation methods, but not, you know, something you could check your own work against. So just beware of that. So do you guys kind of understand the pieces that would be necessary to identify a scholarly article?
Yes.
Awesome, guys. I'm now going to take you into, I think I'll just use ProQuest for this demonstration. I happen to have it linked up right over here. We'll be able to go in. I'm going to use climate change. I've been doing that too often lately, but it is kind of something that shows up some of the things that happen with this database. It starts giving you different ideas. I'm just going to choose this, and I can do the and or not. The and makes the search so that I only find how these things come together. The or is if you have words that mean the same thing, like a global warming and climate change would be a good and. And not is if your search gives you something that's ridiculous and you want to get rid of it. The thing I use often, if I was doing a search on Florida gardening and I did Florida plants and I come up with a bunch of nuclear plants, I would get rid of not nuclear because I'm simply looking for gardening. So you have some things to do here. You're going to select for full text and peer reviewed. Now, remember, peer reviewed just tells you it's a peer reviewed journal, not the article. You still actually have to look at the article. I'm going to put in glaciers, and I'm going to put a truncation mark, which is an asterisk. So I get glacier and glaciers, and I'm going to go to the search. You can tell a lot about an article sometimes just from your search results. This lets me know this is one page. So I'm pretty sure without even looking at it, this one page is going to be a letter to the editor or talk about something else, my first day of work or something, because this is far too brief. I see this has some X's. I might skip that one. This one has 27 pages, and I can see that the database has brought out some of the images. I see that it has multiple authors. So I'm almost sure before even going in here that this is the real deal. So I'll click on the title. It has a head note. If you have the option, the PDF is the best way to go because it's going to show you the images. It's how it actually appeared in the journal. So we'll see, while we can pronounce the title, it's not difficult. So it's good enough as is. We see the authors, we see who they're connected with, we see their authority, we see their email. We can write them letters if you want to, like, hey, congratulations on getting your paper published. This one gives us some nice little keywords. It begins with the abstract. This is quite lengthy. So this is going to be a little bit different, but we know that it's going to have the introduction, and it's going to give some definitions because it is about 20 pages. And if we keep going through, I'll pull this all the way down. We see that they show all their work, their math, and all their figures, which is something you have to do in APA. And at the end, we have the works cited. And if it clears it out a little bit, it talks about their work. And in this case, their conclusion is called final remarks. So in this case, yes, this is absolutely a scholarly journal article. It gives you enough information to question. You see what they read, and it's available to you in full text. And if you're in nursing or the sciences, you absolutely want the PDF because you want to read over and observe what type of math figures and things they put together. Sometimes it's images of sales and other types of things. This is a one-page piece, and it came up under our scholarly article peer-reviewed selection. But you'll see this is going to be more of a friendly article. You'll see it doesn't have the pieces. It's going to give you some data, but it's how to reach people and talk to different people that are I guess very well noted in their field, but it doesn't have the pieces. It doesn't have the references. We actually don't even know who wrote it. So it's just in, I guess it looks like it's in Nature magazine. And we could pretty much tell from how it looked here, but when you look at it, it doesn't have the pieces. All those little ones that I showed you, those are very important. And I'll just go through this other one. I bet this is one page. This one just has 1565. I can look at the PDF, climate change science. And this is actually an editorial written by the editor of the journal. So I hope what you can see from here, when you do select in our very awesome databases for a scholarly journal or peer-reviewed, you're actually getting far more than that. It only can identify the type of journal. And when you get into these pieces and understand how the methodology, the literature research, and all that works together, it's like a profound group of information for you to pull out keywords, narrow down your topic, and do some other things. And do some critical thinking, because sometimes, like, once you get the swing of it, and you see in the methodology that they wanted 100 people, 2 showed up, 1 person fell asleep during, you know what I mean? It gets kind of like, oh no, this was a disaster. But it's part of the process of experimenting and research, which occasionally is a disaster. But sometimes people are able to pull things from it that are useful, or at least they can serve as a warning to do not do this. So some of it can be quite funny. And even though you may not believe me right now, trust me, maybe in a year, you'll tell me that it was funny and you found something. So this wraps this one up. This was a pretty fast one. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what to look for with the scholarly articles, why they look like they do, and how they can be really mixed up and hard to understand online until you understand the parts. Did that work out for you guys?
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear.
And that was pretty fast too, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time, but you missed this part, Lucy. This is what I just said to you. I don't care where you go, University of Washington, you're working on your doctoral degree, you're at Harvard. These essential parts are going to be true in all of your academic career. So I'm hopeful that it helps you out.
Yeah, I think it definitely has.
So when you see it here at Big Bend, you'll probably see it in somebody's rubric or their assignment that says only use or have 2 scholarly articles. When you see that, heads up, that's what they're looking for. Sometimes when you're working on your advanced degrees, they only assume you're working with these. So ask your professor if you can use other types of things besides research articles, and it'll save you a couple of points here and there until you get to know the little thing. And since you guys showed up, I'm going to put in here a link. I want to make sure you guys get it. What I'm asking you for is your name, and I'm asking you for your name. Let me kind of stop